Shalom from Israel, I'm Ariel Ben Abram. This week we read Parshat Yitro. Our sages discuss debate about the name of this portion, considering the content in it. This is the portion in which the Creator gave us the Torah. So this is the moment in the Torah's narrative in which we literally became and become one with God. So the idea would be like using another name to label, so to speak, the content of this portion. So it's like the most important part of this portion is the giving of the Torah. It's like in this moment Israel literally is born as a nation. It's like we are born with an identity. An identity which is defined by the Torah. It's defined by God. God is telling us who we are and who we are going to be. So this is the moment really between before and after in terms of not just the Jewish history, world history, but in particular the turning point between slavery and freedom. It's like we came to a point in which we come to realize what true freedom is, which is being with God. Now, let's analyze some of the sequence of this portion. It begins telling that Yitro came with Moses' wife and children to join them. Our sages say that the reason why this portion is focusing, for so to speak, or named Yitro is because without Yitro there was no Torah. How to explain this? It's like Yitro is the preamble, the premise, so to speak. It's like a precondition to receive the Torah, for the Jewish people to receive the Torah. Now, we know that Yitro wasn't Jewish. We know that he was a priest. Oral traditions say that he was the high priest of Midian. And Midian is defined as one of the idolatrous nations around the Promised Land. So it's like Moses married the daughter of a high priest of idolatry and dwelled with them for 40 years. Based on the accounts of our sages regarding Moses' life, they say that he lived 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in Midian, with his father-in-law Yitro, the character that we're talking at the moment, and 40 years in the desert, for a total of 120 years of life. So of course this has some kind of significance, dwelling in places with particular qualities. In other words, Egypt represents a peculiar quality in consciousness that we have referred before, as well as Midian. So it's like we have said that Mizraim, Egypt, the word Egypt in Hebrew in the Torah is Mizraim. And the meaning, as we have mentioned before, is about limitations, constraints. It's like narrowness. There's no space to move. It's something that is constraining. And we have said that this constriction, these restrictions come out of ego's approach to life. It's like the moment that ego commands our consciousness, controls our consciousness, every level of consciousness, thought, feelings, emotions, passions, and instincts. We create our own reality limited by ego's fantasies and illusions. So the restrictions in which we live are imposed basically by ourselves. So the point is, who in my consciousness is imposing on me restrictions? What part of my consciousness is limiting me, is limiting myself? Is putting borders. So basically the answer is ego. Ego is behind the plot, basically. So the whole idea behind that is that ego wants to have and control its own domains. It's like the little god that ego is establishing his boundaries. It's going to be the way I want, how I want it, when I want it, and with the purpose of getting what I want. It's triggered by envy, jealousy, greed, lust. Wrath, pride. So it's like the vehicle through which ego manifests itself is through negative emotions. It's essentially when we see that we are acting positively, it's like we are really selfless. We are. So we are really devoting ourselves, putting ourselves out there for other people. So it's like in this sense, in this context, ego is like out of the picture kind of thing. It's like what motivates me to open myself, to expand my boundaries, my limitations, by reaching out to others, by connecting, unifying myself to my surroundings and other people who are related to me. So we see that it's a different tendency. The trend is different. It's motivated by something that is our, as we have said before, our essence and true identity. It's really who we are. So when love's ways and attributes lead every aspect of consciousness, from thinking, discerning, feeling, speaking and doing, we're really free. It's like it's an expanding process. It's quite interesting. So you see, like ego is exactly the opposite thing. It's like the restriction, like no, it's the control. It's like don't do this, don't do that. This way, that way. It's exactly the opposite. And then we have to pay attention, as we said before. We have to make our own inventory. Who is really controlling our lives? Who's controlling our emotions? Our feelings, our thoughts, our beliefs, our principles, and also our passions and instincts. So, Midian, this is Egypt. We said that before. We are elaborating a little bit more so we have a clear idea what Egypt means. Egypt and Pharaoh. And then we have Midian. Midian is basically idolatry. It's like some kind of, is it the same like Egypt or different? I mean, what kind of thing? It's a different kind of slavery. In idolatry, we are basically slave of the gods that we build in our consciousness. I mean, the gods that we create, the gods that we recognize as deities, as entities to which we bend. I mean, we bow, you know. That's idolatry, basically. So it's like the ego is some kind of the vehicle, so to speak. You know, like the force, the driving force. But the object towards which this ego driving force leads us is idolatry. It's like, you usually like do this, for example, you have to get this, you have to live like this, you have to have this kind of social status, you have to have this, you have to have that. This having, the object of having, of wanting, of being, the object, being sophisticated, being elegant, being nice, being attractive, being this, being that. The object of the attraction, of the adoration, of the purpose, of what we want to achieve. Those are the idols. They are. So it's like if we pursue light culture, consumer society, social status, sophistication, class kind of thing. It's like a belonging to certain kind of reality that exists. I mean, we know that. If you take a magazine, you will see immediately what is there. You know, when go to the dentist or the doctor, you're waiting, you know, in the waiting hall, and then you see these magazines, fashion magazines, just there. So those are the idols. The glamour and that kind of thing, and then that's idolatry. So the idolatry is like the object of ego's fantasies and illusions. The fantasies and illusions are idols that we fantasize about, what we dream about, what we desire. So the idol of lust is sex. That's an idol. Our addiction to sex, therefore, is our idolatry. So the idol is sex. So we adore, we bend to it. Overeating, getting angry, getting depressed, promoting rejection, you don't want anything, boredom kind of thing. Those are idols. We follow that. We bend our consciousness to those state of consciousness. So that's Midian. So we're talking about Yitro, the father-in-law of Moses, the high priest of Midian. It's like, what kind of idolatrous guy is this? This is really, really new. What idols were. That was his business, basically. That was his way of life. That was his whole philosophy. Like, why this character is coming, from his country to join the Jews to receive the Torah. It's like, what's going on with this? This is a guy who's an idolater. Why? What is doing here? Well, they all were, at those times, idolaters. Even the Jewish people. They were actually part of the idolatry in Egypt. They were, for generations, they were living, they were assimilated to the culture. And God said, I'm going to take you out of there. You are not going to be slaves of Pharaoh anymore. You're going to be my slaves, my servants. So it's basically those idols you're going to bend to, adore, or bow, whatever. You're not going to have idols anymore. You're going to have me, your creator. I'm your father. So you're going to be with me. You're going to believe in me. That's what God says. And do as I say. I'm your father. I'm your creator. For your own convenience, for your own sake. It's not please God that we follow the Torah. It's basically to fulfill an identity, to fulfill a purpose. To have a purpose in life. So that the meaning of life, the sense that I'm giving to my life, the reason that I'm giving is basically what God wants me to be. to have and to do. So it's relatively simple to understand in terms of, being subjected to negative emotions, negative thoughts, negative feelings, negative tendencies. I'm submitted to the good ones. So it's like, I want to be a servant and a slave of goodness, of love. Of reaching out, sharing, loving each other, caring for each other. Those are the idols, so to speak. So using the same term, the same category. The illusion, it's not an illusion, it's real. The other are illusions. Why? The difference is because illusions is what we create. It's like 100 years ago, the things that people like and dream to be and to have, they were different. 500 years, 1,000, they're changing all the time. So actually, the idols don't remain. There's a point in which we have to replace them. Really. So it's not theater anymore, it's movies. It's not movies anymore, it's video games. It's like we're changing our idols throughout time. Why? Because they don't fulfill us. They're temporary, they're ephemeral, they just passed. And then our ego starts feeding our sense of lack, belief of lack, feelings of lack. Get more, get entertained, the world is boring, there's no meaning in life. Kill the time. By doing what television and culture, mass culture, consumer society tells you to. And be part of the game. Versus, instead of putting our attention in getting things just for the sake of getting things and pleasing others, so we have things to show off or just to have, we get out of there and we go to something that really fulfills us permanently. Like we're really feeling good every time. There's no need to overeating, there is no need to get addicted to anything because I'm enough. My lives are enough, my emotions are enough. My goodness is enough. Therefore, I hold on the goodness that I am, my essence and identity, and live from it, by it, with it, for the sake of it. So it's like, that's perfect. That's exactly what is the idea we mentioned in the Messianic Consciousness commentaries in our blog. You see, the Messianic consciousness and the final redemption is a state in which everything that we have said before is good. So like, why do we need evil and wickedness? There's no need for that. The other day, a friend, a virtual friend on Facebook, put said something. She said, I'm going to start this new year, 2014, without anything negative. Because I have enough negativity in the last, I think, 6 or 7 years. In other words, there have been many years in her life in which she had really a lot of garbage to deal with. She had been suffering, she had been depressed, she had been frustrated, unhappy with life, unhappy with work, unhappy with everything. This is really like a burden, a heavy one, to carry every day, every moment. So finally, for whatever reason that she doesn't explain, and I didn't ask her, she said, I get rid of all of them. Finally, I'm going to start up clean now, and I'm going to pursue only goodness. It's like, wow, it's nice. It's very nice to hear that. So it's like, what kind of lesson and what kind of experience this woman had in order to see, I'm going to see only goodness from now on. Everything that is bad, I'm going to reject. And I remember that I wrote her, is that you have no other choice but doing that. It's like, once you know that you only want goodness in your life, you have no other choice but looking for goodness. It's like, why are you going to look around something negative to yourself, getting in problems, bad relationships, whatever was bothering her? She's not gonna do that anymore. It's like, I'm pursuing goodness from now on. I don't want to fall in that trap, that negative illusion of getting involved in the reality of negative people. I don't want to deal with them anymore. From now on, I'm going to choose goodness, everything good and right for me. I'm like, wow, it's nice. It's like, it's good to hear, to know some people who really have the determination, not just the motivation, but the purpose. Yeah, I'm going to take goodness every time, every moment. If I see anything negative, I just walk out. Because I only want goodness in my life. So imagine if we all, collectively, had that approach. This would be heaven. The material world would be really heaven. That's the final redemption. That's the Messianic consciousness. We only pursue goodness. Isaiah the prophet said, the only interest that humankind is going to have is the knowledge of God. Whatever that means, obviously. We're talking about goodness. God is good. We know that. So we're going to pursue goodness. He's like, what about if we start doing that now with ourselves individually, like this lady? That would be nice. It's like, my determination is, I don't want to take crap from anybody anymore, or from any negative situation or circumstance. I reject anything negative in my life from now on. That's it. Call me crazy, call me whatever. I'm going to be fine. And she will be fine. So I hope that she keeps this strength, this determination not to bow down to ego's negative fantasies and illusions. Selfishness, pride, lust, envy, greed. Like, I don't need that. I'm going to pursue goodness and try to find others with the same kind of mentality, with the same kind of feelings, with the same kind of thoughts, with the same kind of emotions. They approach us with a smile. Brothers and sisters, that's the idea. So that the idolatry, again, we have to pay attention what are the idols that we follow, that we serve. We have to make an inventory again. What are my obsessions? What are my attachments? What are my addictions? Those are the idols. How much do we enjoy being their slaves, their servants? It's an individual process now. So whoever does it, will find whatever he or she are going to find. So that's Yitro. So Yitro comes to, why Yitro is coming to Moses? Could have stayed Midian, sent his daughter, who is Moses' wife, and children, just go meet your father and husband, and I'm fine here. When he came and he told Moses, I heard about what God has done to the Egyptians in favor of the Israelites. He realizes, this is God. This is the only God. This is the real, true God. So we see that Yitro is part of the Jewish people. The oral tradition said that he stayed, although the Torah said that he returned to his country. Our oral tradition says that he actually stayed, finished his business, what he had to do in Midian, and then moved back, he and his descendants, to join the Jewish people. Now, why did I just say Yitros presence is a prerequisite for the Jews to receive the Torah. Why? We have said that, as we mentioned about Moses, 40 years in Egypt with Pharaoh and the palace of Pharaoh, 40 years in Midian, 40 years in the desert. There's a process of transformation. There's a process of awareness about who we are, about what we do, about what we think, about what we believe, including the idols that we follow. But there is also a point in our lives in which we come to the awareness that we belong somewhere, somewhat different, a different place, which is our true essence and identity. It's like we are going back to ourselves. It's like who I'm truly as a person, as a human being, as a being, who I am, who is my creator, what's my purpose here. With a physical body and a consciousness with different levels and dimensions. So that's Yitro. So Yitro is the awareness, the realization that there's one God to whom we belong, to whom we are part of. So that's why the portion is named Yitro, and it's not called Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah for Israel, God's manifesting Himself as He did. I mean, those are proper names for the portion. But Yitro is the name. So then after that process, the Torah, the narration tells us that Yitro told Moses, you are being the judge. At that time, Moses was taking care of everybody, literally. Oh, there's somebody there who lost his money and he doesn't have anything to eat, and Moses will solve the problem. Or there's a quarrel between two tribes or neighbors, Moses would solve the problem. We're talking about 600,000 people plus women, children, and elders. So we're talking about easily from 5 to 6 million people in the desert. It's like one person taking care of 6 million people. Yes. That was the kind of situation at the moment. So Yitro told him, you cannot do this. You want to worn out yourself. You want to really kill yourself by doing this. Just from early in the morning to late night, he was taking care of people. What happened to you now? Oh, this guy did something to me and everything. So he said you have to create jurisdictions. So like a higher court, appealing, court of appeals kind of thing, municipal court, circuit court, etc. So it's like different levels. So this character, Yitro, was a really wise person. It's like, hey, you're a statesman, act like one. You have to divide people to administrate justice for 10 people, for 50 people, for 100 people, for 1,000 people, 10,000 people. And people who are honest. That's what the Torah says. So you pick them up, pick honest people to be honest judges. So we see that the Jewish people in the desert alone were basically facing national issues. They were a nation already, not officially, but they were. They really needed a structure to coexist harmonically as a nation. Then after that comes the transcendental time, moment, which is eternal actually. So the giving of the Torah, the Ten Commandments, is an eternal moment. Why? because God appeared and God is timeless. So that moment is eternal. As simple as that. So, well, it happened. It's there. It's there. It's now. And it will be always there. Because at that moment when God was one with us, giving us the Torah, we were one. That's a timeless moment. Yeah, but we're here. Those are paradoxes. But how convenient, paradoxes. Well, that's the way it is. If it's eternal, this cannot happen 3,300 and some years ago. It's present, it's there. We were there. We're part of that unity now. Regardless of being in this physical body, with this consciousness that is temporary, we're still there. Now, we have to reach out to that moment in our consciousness. That's the whole point. To be part of that eternal moment, which is eternal, we have to connect to that. We have to get our consciousness as high as possible to reach out to that moment that is eternal, which is the oneness with God. How we do that? We have to know our identity given by the Torah. Study the Torah. Doing what the Torah says that we have to do, what God asks us to do, commands us to do. Then we will be part of that eternal moment. We will. Actually, we are the moment that we just think about it. And we transcend time and space immediately. Flesh, bones, stones, everything. And we enter a different phase, a different kind of consciousness, the messianic consciousness that we're talking about. We realize that what perfection means. So we leave behind all the judgments, we leave behind all this that is holding us, all the restrictions that keep us down in the lower levels of consciousness. We're being frustrated, being angry, being depressed, being cruel, being envied, having envy, wrath. Those are really the lower. Those are the hells, really. So we have to get out of hell and go to heaven. That's the whole point. And the good news is that we have created hell. Hell is not there put by God or anything. We have created it. We created depression. We created sadness. We created anger. We created pride. We created lust. We have created those. See, we are co-creators with God. So God has a certain kind of, this is everything that I created for you is good. It's goodness here. So live in the side of goodness. Choose life. Choose the blessings. And if there's anything negative around, don't do it. Choose goodness. Do you like light and darkness? But darkness, in our consciousness, we created it. It's not there. We were not born with it. We acquired it based on the environment, what we learn in the school, what we learn by the system, by the government, by culture. And then we act. Basically, we react to kind of respond to those patterns. It's very simple. Psychology explains that. So it's like, so we invented our own way to understand our thinking. It's psychology. So we created that too. To understand the things that we get into emotionally, mentally, or physically. So let's be aware of that. Then after this preamble of Yitro, like the premise to receive the Torah have to be idolaters. The high priest of idolatry have to come to make everybody realize that there's one God. So it's like, hey, we have been idolaters, but this guy is the top idolater, and he's coming to recognize God. Probably he's right. I mean, we have to understand that in the mentality of many thousands of years ago. But basically, that was the story that our sages remark about Yitro. It's like Yitro was like the witness, like the main witness to abandon idolatry. It's like if this guy who is the greatest, big guy, top guy, is coming here to recognize and acknowledge and embrace God as our only God. Gosh, we better do what he says. I mean, not because of Yitro, but let's try to get the idea here. So like sometimes people do what other people do. They believe what other people believe. They don't have their own beliefs. Up until they find someone like them who is changing. Someone who they respect, by the way. Of course. So then he came and he said, what's guy? As we said, he told Moses, create jurisdictional courts, And later, in the same portion, the first reading of the portion, at the end he said that he offered sacrifices. There was no temple, there was no Mishkan, no tabernacle yet. The Torah hasn't been given. And then they say Yitro came and offered sacrifices in which Moses, Aaron, and the elders departed. I mean, they were sharing, took part of. The peace offerings. And we have said that peace has to do with wholeness. Offerings of wholeness, totality, unity, oneness. And then the Ten Commandments. And then we get there. Now there was a period of preparation, as we read in the Torah in this portion. They were getting basically ready for this moment. The Jewish tradition is Shavuot, 49 days after leaving Egypt. So then at that moment we receive the Torah. And which one is the first commandment? I am Hashem, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. So it's interesting because God could have said, he says, why is he saying that way? First commandment, he could have said, I am God, the creator of all. That's fair. And it's true besides that. I'm God, I created everything. That's the definition of God, by the way. I mean, how we as humans understand God, the creator of all, everything that is, everything that we can perceive with our senses. That's God, our creator, the creator of all. But he says no. He says, I am God who brought you up from the land of Egypt, the house of slavery. So it's like he's some kind of defining himself. So instead of saying, I'm the creator of all, which is true, that's the way it is, he's telling us, I brought you up from the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. It's like, I am your freedom. I am what makes you free. That's the God is. It's not just enough to say that God is the creator of all. is also our freedom from the house of slavery, who is bringing us up from Egypt. He's elevating us. So synthesis would have said, take you out. This is out, up from. This is lifting us up. That's our God. At least in Judaism, based on the Torah. So other people, we're not going to argue about that. They can believe whatever they want. So our God is our freedom. He's the one who takes us out, up from freedom. Now we have to define what freedom is. Freedom is, of course, being with Him. That's freedom. And we were there at that moment. We are now at that moment. That moment is eternal. Second commandment. You don't want to have any idols before me. Just like, so you say that the remaining 9 commandments are exactly some kind of echoing, a resonance, a projection of the first one. Just like in this freedom that He's giving us, our God, we do and don't do the rest of the 10 commandments. Whatever is coming is because of God. So it's like He's our Creator and the one who delivers us from Egypt, from the one who is bringing us up to freedom. The rest is like some kind of obvious. It's like, I don't want to have any idols. I don't want to believe in anything but Him. However, He's telling us, do not. Carve for yourself idols before me. That's the literal. It's like carving, I mean, like modeling idols. That in Hebrew the word also means masks. Don't carve masks. And it makes perfect sense, because when we are involved in other things, we are wearing masks. What consumer society wants us to be is basically a mask that we have to wear. Status, sophistication, class, you name it. It's like, don't do that before me. It's like, basically what He's saying is, God is saying, it's like, I'm here, you're not going to do that in front of me, before me. It's like, if I'm with you, how come you're going to have something else than me? That's the meaning of not having other gods before God. It's very simple. The semantics are clear. If we are with God, we believe in Him, we cannot have anything different than Him. Meaning something that we create. So He's telling us, like, do not carve, do not elaborate idols for yourself before me. For yourself, by the way. It's like, you are creating some things for yourself. Don't do it in front of me. Meaning, don't involve me there. I'm not part of that, says God. So really, we have to be with Him. And not with our egos, fantasies, and illusions. Our addictions, our obsessions, our attachments. Before Him. It's like, we are part of Him. How are we going to bring this crap, No. Third, the same. Do not use my name in vain. What is the name of God? It's indefinable. We don't have a definition of God. So how do we do that? It's like, desecrate the name of God. I mean, like, using His name in vain. What is vain? Vanity. In other words, we're using God's essence, our Creator, our freedom, and we want to put that freedom at the service of vanity. Think about it. It's like, I don't want to be there. It's like, I'm giving you life, says God. And you're using the life that I'm giving you to desecrate that essence that I'm giving you. That's basically using the name of God in vain. So don't get trapped in the literal definition. Oh, I don't want to say the name of God because, that's a sin. Come on. We have to go deeper than that, or higher than that. We cannot use our true essence and identity, which is from where we come from, Him, for vanities, in vain. It's like, basically, it's like throwing, as they say, diamonds to the pigs, to the swine. It's extreme, but it's just to give you an idea. That's vanity. Egos, fantasies, and illusions are vanities of vanities, as King Solomon used to say. Time to die, time to lie, time to kill, time to this, time to that. Everything is vanity, vanity, vanity. We have created those. So what Solomon is telling us is like, don't be a slave of your own vanities. Strive, pursue transcendence. What is transcendence here? In our consciousness, in what we think, what we feel, in what we desire, what is transcendent and will last forever. From where we came from, God's love. Therefore, we understand that love as the material manifestation of God's love is what is transcendent in our lives. That transcends. Therefore, we embrace love, love's ways and attributes as the essence from where we are. And we're destined to do, to have, and to be. That's our destiny. That's what we came from. And that's not being vain. That's being free. As the God of freedom is telling us to be. He's our God who freed us. So it's like we never forget that. He's telling us. It's a commandment. The first one. I took you up from the land of Egypt. The house of slavery. It's like He's our Redeemer. It's not just God, it's our Redeemer. He's telling us, I'm God, your Redeemer. So when we are trapped in our own illusions, negative illusions and negative outcomes, with suffering, and with this, take us out of this hell, and we have to cry out to Him. He is the God of our redemption, of our freedom. So this portion is about freedom. I mean, it's like the culmination, like the purpose, the beginning at the same time of living in freedom, real freedom, which is being with God, following His ways and attributes. And then the rest of the commandments. Have to keep Shabbos. We have to devote one program for Shabbat, one video, because we cannot define what is this. Not in one video, many videos. The largest tractate in the Talmud is Shabbat. Just give you an idea. At big volumes. So we talk about Shabbos and the rest of the commandments, the commentaries. But you think about it, like, read them, especially the first two. Our oral tradition says that the first two were given directly by God. And the people were, of course, in this oneness with God that they thought that they were dead. And they said to Moses, Moses, do something. You know, we are in this eternal moment. And we want to go back to where we were. We're dead. We don't want to die. We don't want to die. And God said, okay. So God told Moses, tell the rest of the commandments. And then the souls came down. Wow. We were there. Every Jew was there. It's an eternal moment. It is. Think about it and you will know that it is. Because God is eternal. We're part of Him. Simple as that. Okay, we finish with this. We wish you an amazing, beautiful rest of the week, full of blessings, positive endeavors, positive outcomes. Shabbat Shalom, and see you next week.